Bwana asifiwe. I have the next 30 minutes to give a story of the last over 40 years. What I've been asked is to try to share my testimony about the workplace. And obviously in 30 minutes I can't, but I'll select some things, hoping that the younger people can get the other details. I've written a book because of being asked that question many times. I finally put it in a book. It's called The Christian Professional Leading in the Marketplace. And it's biographical. I've shared my testimony. The book is available with focus outside there. I've also written recently a book that came out last year called A Leader's Work Ethics, trying to explain how work and not just preaching is ministry. So that you don't start thinking that when you're talking about workplace ministry, we are talking about an accountant stopping to add and subtract and start preaching. And so my book tries to explain that when you work, your normal job, you are a doctor, you are helping somebody sick, you are actually doing ministry. And that's what my book, Leaders, Work Ethics. And then this year, I've come out with a new book that is called Discovering Your Life's Purpose. And our keynote speaker mentioned that quite a bit. The reason why a lot of us do not play the role we should be playing in our workplace is because we don't see the purpose of the workplace vis-a-vis God. And I'm trying to encourage people in the book to start understanding that every Christian must of necessity hear God's voice. You know, when you talk to my friend Bishop Omai, he will tell you, I used to be an accountant until the Lord called me. Which means whatever he was doing, he was not called. Now, my new book is to say you have no business doing any job as a Christian if the Lord has not called you. If you're an accountant, you must say like a pastor, the Lord called me to be an accountant. And I'm not original with it. Colossians 3:17 says, whatever you do. Now, I know I did English a long time ago, but not as long ago as Dr. Kobia, but still long ago. The last time I sat in an English class was when I did my Form 4 in 1971. But they told me that when you say whatever, the word whatever, because you say whatever you do, you must do it as unto the Lord. Whatever. What does whatever exclude? Those who have done English after me. What does whatever exclude? And what does whatever include? What that means, you have no business being a house girl if you cannot say, I'm a house girl in the name of the Lord. And that is the basis of this conference. Workplace ministry is an understanding that every one of us is supposed to be involved in ministry. Some of us inside the church, majority of us outside the church. The second point I wanted to emphasize as we discuss my testimony is to emphasize the discovery I made a long time ago, and which Joshua mentioned a little earlier. That when you talk about ministry, you are talking about something that is required out of all of us. If you go to the book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 8, it says, wait in Jerusalem. Why? So that the Holy Spirit comes upon you. How shall we know? We have never seen the Holy Spirit. How shall we know the Holy Spirit has come upon us? Jesus answers the question by saying, when he comes on you, you will become my witnesses. Where? It may start in Jerusalem, but it will go everywhere, including the workplace. Now, if you move a little lower, that's verse 8, move down to verse 15. The Bible tells us the people that were being addressed that time and the ones that received the Holy Spirit were 150, not the 12. Somewhere that verse is missed. Because a lot of people think that pastors are the ones to receive the Holy Spirit because they need to preach. But the people who got filled by the Holy Spirit were not 12, to 150. Which then tells you that every Christian, first of all, must be filled with the Holy Spirit. But number two, once they are filled, it's not so that they feel nice. It's so that they become witnesses. And that means that in your place of work, you must not only do the job of an accountant, subtracting, dividing, but sometimes multiplying. Now, my accountant friends, you must not only do it, but do it in such a way that somebody will know Christ. Okay, see the difference? And that's what I normally call the special branch model. When I say special branch, I'm dated, because I think it has a new name now. But when you are younger, there were policemen that never wore a uniform. They will just be with you. In fact, when I was in the University of Nairobi in the 70s, we used to be told they are in a class. You can't see them. They are policemen. They may have beards. They don't wear uniform, and they sit with you. And they are there every evening. They are writing reports. But they must not be known to be policemen, because then you will discover them, isn't it? So they work in the university or wherever. I hear they're everywhere. And they are informers. They are policemen. And they, depending on how they are reporting, they even get promotions. You can hear somebody is in special branch and he's an SSP, special senior superintendent of police, but he has no uniform. I remember talking to one of them, and I said, that's very interesting. If you're in the university and your contract is 4 years, you do not actually, you must find, and our years were 3. We were 3 years in the university. If you are contracted 4 years, you must find a way of failing. Because you see, if you pass, you will finish university before your contract gets ended. So somewhere in second year, you just fail. All of us start sympathizing with you for failing. Only somebody to tell you, he has actually been receiving promotions. Here in the university, he's failing. Out there, he is receiving promotions. Because he has 2 reports. He has the report form of the university. He has the one of the other office, isn't it? And he can be doing badly in one and doing well in another. I'm here to tell you, every Christian follow the special branch model. You are employed by the government. The PS wants certain information. He is only the day report supervisor. But at the same time, you are employed by God, and he expects a report. You can be getting promotions in your place of work and demotions from the heavenly kingdom. Because the truth is, although you are doing a good job as an accountant, every time the reporter, is it an angel, who is keeping your record, he is saying you are doing nothing. Am I communicating? Not understanding that you must get promotions on both counts. Anyway, I left the university more than 42 years ago, and the thing that was in my mind very clearly was that I needed to serve the Lord, but I did not feel called to be a pastor. I felt called to be a professional who was going to use my profession to be a witness of Jesus Christ. In fact, because I had done a big com, one of the jobs I really wanted is to be a cooperative officer. District, those days graduates became district cooperative officers. And I knew if they gave me the job, most likely I'll not be in Kiambu. I'll be in Madeira, you know, because you see the older ones want to come nearer, isn't it? So the new ones are the ones who will go far. And that means I can be in Madeira as a missionary paid by the government. Are you getting the picture? I don't have to ask the church to raise any funds. I have a full salary. And I'll do 8 hours of work. Because that's what the government wants, isn't it? But because I have 24 hours, if I take 8, I'm left with 16, isn't it? And I'm not married. Now, surely, I can't sleep for more than 6, so I have 10 hours. So I can be a missionary for 10 hours without anybody raising funds. That was my idea. But unfortunately for me, I didn't get the... I I told God, whichever job comes first, I'll believe that's where you are calling me. So I got a job with the development bank in Nairobi. And I felt very disappointed. Because in my mind, I didn't see Nairobi needing preaching. Everybody preaches in Nairobi, isn't it? So I had to go far. But I got the letter of appointment in the development bank this week. Next week, I went to the post office to discover I had been appointed a district cooperative officer. But I could not report because in my prayer, we had agreed with God, wherever he calls must. Me, although that's not where I want to go, but I want to be where God wants me. Whatever you do it as unto the Lord. That's how I ended up in the bank. Once I was in the bank, I'm still wondering. I knew what I was going to do if I was sent to Ramu or someplace. What am I going to do in the bank? And I was a project officer. And the first thing that came is, how do I start witnessing to these people? It didn't take long. As I'm sharing, as a young graduate, I'm sharing with others about those I can, about my Christian walk. Until one day, I used to live in Nairobi West, and I'm coming to town. Something happened, and I came late. I arrived in the office at 8:15. And we used to write on the register. There was an attendance register. So I wrote on the paper 8:15. Now, which is the time I arrived. Everybody else had arrived before 8. So I was the only latecomer. Now, then I went to my work. I worked normally. But I now knew my boss would know I came late. In the day, people started looking at me with bad eyes. I said, what could I have done? Am I dressed badly? Exactly, what's the problem? Nobody is telling me, but I can see they are talking about me. It's only during lunch hour, one lady was daring. She came and said, young man, what's wrong with you? I said, I don't know. What's wrong with me? So she said, why did you report us to the boss that we came late? I said, me? I have not even seen the boss today. I said, you young man, you can't understand what you did. What did I do? You know, I went back to the register. When I wrote 8:15, everybody else came at 8:15. You know, you cannot write 8:05. So I had forced all the people who came after me, I had forced them to admit they came. So I said, I don't know what to do. My intention was not to report to you. Now, you are a hopeless young man. Now, it became a fight. But I told them, even next time I come late, I'll still write it. Play, I never come late again. And so it did not take time for people to know I'm a Christian. Because you see, they now know there is a fool of a young man. Who, there is a method we have understood of never reporting, but he says he can't see the sense. But of course, with that, it meant those who want to find about Christ can come to me to find about Christ. As I'm busy writing project papers and giving loans, those who want to know something about me and about Christ would come to me. I started inviting some of them to go with me to Bible House. Bible House is now currently your headquarters or something. Yeah, Bible House, we used to have a lunch hour fellowship in the 1970s, and we used to be upstairs where we would go. So I used to invite people, my workmate, whether we could go there. And most of them said it was a little far. That's where an idea struck me. What about if we began a fellowship in the bank? Such that over the lunch hour, people would agree to come and we can pray together and talk to them about Christ. The idea came, I talked to one person, they thought it was a good idea. I went to personnel manager. Those days they were not called HR. In the 70s they were called personnel. And I said, I am sure the bank would be happy for people to pray for it. Nobody is unlikely to refuse prayer. So I said, give us a place, and once a week, we'll be meeting to pray for the bank. So we finally got a place. Now my next job was to invite people. My only trouble is that the people who could want to be associated were Mama Chai, Baba Chai. Senior people did not want to come to the prayer meeting. But they started all the same. And so that's the way we started the fellowship, the prayer meeting in the bank. Remember, My topic is about strategies that can help you to be a witness in your place of work. 3 things about beginning a prayer meeting in your place of work. Number 1, anybody who comes to a prayer meeting will be associated with the foolish people. That's why even born-again people, active in church, the elders in the church, they are lunch or fellowship, they can't even touch with a long pole. Because normally, it might affect your upward mobility. Do you understand the language? When they want to promote someone, they start thinking, but he attends the fellowship. He's a fool. How can we promote him? So in order to avoid not getting a promotion, even Christians will not attend the lunch hour fellowship. But that brings us to the second point. They now realize for somebody to go to that fellowship, it means they are very serious with God. Even if they are not, but they will assume. You must be very serious with God. And so normally, when people want somebody who can pray for them, they'll look for somebody who goes to that group of fools. And I know that because from the bank, I got pushed by Shell and went over to Shell, and I started a fellowship again. And one day, a young man was passing from near my office. I used to have my office door is this. My secretary was on the next. Normally my door would be locked, but this time it was open. Thinking that he's entering the secretary's place, he opened my door. He said, sorry. I said, no, just come in. He said, no, I didn't. I meant to go to the secretary. He said, just come in. I said, how are you? On Mondays, I had the habit of asking people on Monday, how was church? Many people don't go to church, by the way. Are you aware, as much as we are taught to be Christians, in Nairobi, hardly more than 40% of the population of Nairobi attends church. I know Baptist is full, Valley Road is full, but it's only full of that percent. Are you getting the point? Most people don't go to church. So when you ask that, he starts saying, I didn't go, but, I've been wanting to ask you something. I said, but you said you are not coming. Yes, I have been wanting to come, but every time I reach near your door, my leg gets heavy. I can't enter. I told him, now you are in, you can talk. So I said, sit. He told me, I have a big problem, and I knew you are the only one who can pray for me. I'm hardly concentrating at work, and I knew you can pray for me. I said, what's the big problem? He told me, I've been having girlfriends. Non-Christians don't have a girlfriend. They have girlfriends. And one of them came to my house on Sunday, and she has refused to go out. I don't know what to do. I just thought you can pray for her out of the house. So I looked at him and said, so it's a real problem. Yes, I don't know what to do. I don't want to marry her. I'm not even ready. But she has refused in my house. So I told him, you know something? I'm a little older than you, but I've gone through the same. No girl has ever come to my house and refused in the house. You must ask yourself, what's the difference between you and me? It's because you don't know Christ. If you knew Christ, the kind of girls who will attract you, that you will attract, cannot refuse to go out of your house. So, if you really want to sort out your issue, my suggestion would be, get to know Jesus. Get saved. Then you will pray, you will go to that person as a Christian to give her a testimony. The boy says, can I get saved here? I know it's office hours, but I was dealing with an emergency. Because if he is not working in his place of work, Shell is not benefiting. For the good of Shell, I need to help him to start working, isn't it? So I went to my secretary's place and told him not to disturb, lock the place, don't disturb. I came back, shared a few verses, and he gave his life to the Lord. I'm talking about idea of a prayer meeting in your workplace is an opportunity to penetrate the place of work. Normally what happens is that most senior people, like I began the Shell one, and I stayed in Shell until I retired. By the time I got into top management, one of the people came and said, will you still be attending the fellowship? I said, why? Surely you don't expect people in the boardroom to come to the fellowship. I said, I have the spiritual need that made us begin that fellowship. I still have the spiritual need. My promotions do not deal with the spiritual need, so I will still be attending. And even when I was in top leadership of Shell, when it was a Wednesday, I would tell everybody, today is our fellowship day. We pray for the company. All of you are invited. They laugh. But now that I was in top management, I'm able to share about what we are doing. Whether they come or they don't, they know about it. I can tell you clearly that if you remember our discussion today, it's about workplace ministries. There is no way you can claim to have a ministry without visibility. If you're a top secret Christian in your place of work, you are depriving yourself opportunity to be a witness. Am I communicating? Yeah. And so the prayer, and it's important to understand, there are many of them. However, there are people I would suggest don't attend the prayer meeting. Would you like to know why? If you are a double-minded person, you say you are saved, but you're also running after girls in the office. My friend, please help us. Don't come for the fellowship. Because you see, they might think that the fellowship is a joking fellowship. Am I communicating? So when you talk about workplace ministry, it doesn't begin by you doing something about Christ there. It begins by you walking with the Lord in your private life. Am I communicating? Yeah. You know somebody said, your words, your actions are so loud, I can't hear your words. Have you heard of that saying? And it means that one of the critical requirements for workplace ministry are people who, number one, do their job seriously. You cannot be the lazy person and be the one who will be a witness. It doesn't work. For example, you are the cashier where money never balances. Then you are telling your supervisor, you know, I really want you to get saved so that I get confused. It's very important. It's very important to understand the first entrance to ministry is being an excellent professional. You know, I keep telling people, lazy is not, and Christian cannot be in the same sentence. A lazy Christian, it can't be in the same sentence because lazy people are going to hell and Christians are going to heaven. So the moment you are lazy, you are not a... Do you know there are more verses in the Bible against laziness than against drunkenness? If a drunkard sat next to you and they are smelling, by now the ushers would get them out. Yes, sitting next to you are lazy people, and you are doing nothing about it. You need to understand the way God defines laziness is not the way the church defines it. Are we together? You need to understand that to have impact in the workplace, you should never be associated with laziness. It will be important that you understand, and your supervisor gives you work. They know you'll do your best. Your best may not be as good as so-and-so, but by the time the boss gave you, they know you'll not joke with the work. Are we together? And that's really the thing that God helped me right from the beginning. I knew that when I work in my job, both in the bank and when I later came to Shell, I want to work in such a way that my supervisor can talk about a mistake I did, but they cannot talk about laziness. That they know I did my best, even if I did a mistake, I did a mistake trying to do good. And what that normally does is that it starts creating opportunities. You see, most people, supervisors in Shell, I was always the senior-most person saved. When I joined, I became the only Christian who was an executive. All the other Christians were juniors. So as I got promotions, I was always the senior-most person born again. And they always had a problem wondering, do we really promote him? with this language of his, with this Christianity, but then they have a problem because I'm performing. Am I communicating? Yeah. So, like, I was about to become a distribution manager. Then they kind of felt, he'll be representing us in industry and government. No. I was sent to Kisumu. That's how in the 80s I became the area manager in Kisumu because they did not see how I was going. And for 3 years I stayed in Kisumu. Until one day, I thought they had forgotten me. But one day, I got a call from the CEO. And he said, John, I want you here on Monday. I said, is it possible I come on Tuesday because I had a program for Monday? He said, no, it's urgent. Cancel whatever you have. Take the flight on Sunday evening. I want us to be together on Monday morning. So I had to cancel everything and appear. When I arrived in the office, he told me, we are having a problem with the company. And it's a problem of corruption. We have, as management, sat together, and everybody agrees you are the only one who can tackle it. Because the reason he is saying that is because, remember, you are dealing with Arabs, Asians who own tankers, isn't it? They are able to compromise the people that are involved in the office. So that although you are fighting corruption in the private sector, it still doesn't work. And understand that when you don't refuse the bribe, the next thing they threaten is to get rid of you. And most people, when they reach to the level where they want to kill you, you see, after all, this is not easy, mamangu. So this is not my mother's property. So you allow them to do whatever needs to be done so that you don't die. Are we together? So I knew what the CEO was saying. He knew it required a Christian who keeps saying they want to go to heaven. And the earlier, the better. Those are the only people who can tackle corruption. Am I communicating? So he told me, John, he gave me 3 departments where corruption was high. Procurement manager, distribution manager. He told me, the choice is yours. We have a real problem. Whichever departmental head you choose, the circular is going out today. So I said, distribution manager. Before I reached Kisumu, the circular had already gone out. That's how I became distribution manager. Remember, they are the same ones who drew me to the head of Kenya. Am I communicating? It's not that they want me, they have no alternative. Am I communicating? That if you really want to be a witness, it is not enough to payuka about Christ. It will be important that your performance is such that, because everybody knows which side the bread is buttered. So they'll not like your Christianity. They'll even try to do anything. But once they realize that they need you, they keep promoting you against their wishes. Am I communicating? And that's really important. So we are talking about becoming a witness in your workplace. And I'm saying that is something that will be important. So your work must be work that is exemplary. Number 2, you must be openly confessing Christ. If you are somewhere in a communist country, I wouldn't say the same thing. But in a country like Kenya, for you not to openly admit you're a Christian, there may be something you are hiding. Am I communicating? So, because you see, I've just told you, some people you don't have to go to them. Once they know you are Christian, they'll come to you. Am I communicating? So it will be important if you're really going to do workplace ministry. And that's not preaching. It's just people knowing that you are actually a Christian. The third one, and most important, you must be ready to be fired. The moment you like the title division manager, you enter, God promotes you, you get there. Then after some time, you start feeling, it is sweet. Higher salary. I'm able to take my children to a better school. You start feeling, it reaches a level where you not want to lose a job. The moment you reach there, you have begun compromise. Whatever your boss tells you, you have to do it so that you don't lose your job. The thing that helped me to maintain ministry all my years was when I realized my children's school fees does not come from Shell. It comes from God, using Shell. Shell is just a pipe. Am I communicating? Just like City Council has water from Dakaine Dam. Are we together? That is the reservoir. But a pipe could have a frog, isn't it? If your pipe has a frog, it's not a big deal. Just remove the pipe and put another pipe. Am I communicating? So the moment you understand your business is not a reservoir, it's just a pipe. Am I communicating? The moment you realize your employment is not a reservoir, it's just a pipe, then you'll be daring enough to stand your ground against your senior-most person, against government offices. Because some of them, that's what happens. You are told by the company, this is your problem. Sort it out with the government. You go to government, they won't bribe. Your company may even be willing to facilitate, but you can't. Now, if you don't, so you'll lose your job. Because the company also lose. But you cannot lose with you there. Now, the thing that is a big problem, witness, and what happens, which is a witness, is when people realize you are ready to be fired. Are we together? They cannot threaten you with firing. The moment they know you are ready. Are we together? When I retired, the company threw a party for me at Carnival, and we went with my wife. One of the managers, my co-managers, was asked to talk. And he said, you know, John Nganga, he's telling now the rest of the staff, the way he talks in the corridors is the same way he talks in the boardroom. Then he added, but I don't try that. That tells you that this fellow manager has always feared I'll be fired. So every time he sees me talking my mind, he wonders, this guy will be fired. And so he has been fearing for me until I retired. Am I communicating? So I was ready to be fired. I'm acting in a manner as to suggest I can be fired. But the Lord stayed me there until I reached retirement age. Am I communicating? So you need to be where you understand that God who gave this business, that God who gave that job, has not run out from where he manufactures them. Am I communicating? I can tell you, and I'm finishing, the biggest problem of Kenya is not desire for money. It is fear. Kenya's problem is not people want money. It's a fear. I have now made a discovery that the poor people are the most corrupt. I used to give it as a theory until Goldenberg saga on TV. And you remember everybody who came was asked, what happened? Do you remember the guy in charge of the mines? And he was asked, did you sign for the gold? Yes. Did you see it? No. Why? Orders from? Looking at that Kamuzé, you could see he's still poor. Because the billions did not go to his pocket. But the signature was his. So the country lost billions with the Muzé getting nothing. And of course, you know the deputy governor of Central Bank told us that when they came to her, they did not offer her a single thing. They just told him, please understand about your job. If you care about your job, sign. But they never offered a bribe. Many people that are abetting corruption in Kenya are getting absolutely nothing. And some of them are seated here. Their argument is simple. Me, I'm not the one who I ate nothing. But you are the one who allowed it to be eaten. And in my vernacular, we say, Gotire moishi, chodhereria. It's not a thief and the one who saw him stealing. They got the same hair, same temperature. It will not it will not matter. So I thought in talking about opportunities, and I'm finishing, in talking about opportunities for ministry, that idea of being ready to lose your job allows you to share with others you can share with your boss because you don't fear he'll fire you. And even if he did, you know only God can allow him. Am I communicating? By the way, just to finish the story, you hear my friend feared that I would be fired. When I reached my retirement age, my regional Muzugu manager rang me and said, John, I want to disappoint you. I said, what? The guy whom we want to take over in Kenya is working in Ghana, Shell Ghana, and he has not been allowed to go. Can I give you a contract so that in addition to pension, you will now be earning a salary on contract to wait until the guy comes? So you see, after I retired, I still continued working. Now, so you need to understand clearly that is important. Now, the final thing I want to say about it. Opportunities are many. When I joined Shell, and I didn't quite understand how a multinational works, before I began the fellowship, I saw that during lunch hour, they were showing films, normally exploration films, because they have the cinema. And that's when an idea came to my mind. If I went to the library of NCCK, it has wonderful Christian films. What about if I showed them in the Shell building? So I came to the department that was in charge and said, instead of just showing these exploration oil films, can I, myself with my own money, sponsor a film? So with your own money? I said, yes. So it's not going to affect my budget? No. So just advertise. And so I went to NCCK, and I knew a very popular film in the 70s and 80s. It was called A Thief in the Night. Now, once we advertised A Thief in the Night, action, everybody filled up in there. And obviously, you know it's a witnessing film, isn't it? When they came out, they said, this is the kind of film we want. So I got a new job. Every other month, I went to NCCK and brought another film and became a way of witnessing to my staff mate at my cost. After some time, the manager in charge asked, Brother Nganga, surely, how can you be sponsoring a whole multinational? So what do you mean? You pay this. The company should be paying. I said, I haven't refused, but they haven't offered. I said, from now onwards, get a receipt. Bring it to the company. We will be paying, refunding money back. So I now continued witnessing at zero cost. Am I communicating? So it's important to understand, and I hope you get the book and listen to the rest of the story. The opportunities are everywhere. The trouble is, are you looking for them? Are we together? Do you see it as your responsibility to minister in your place of work? Do you take the message of Ezekiel, that if I have announced the destruction of a city, and you don't tell them, their blood will be required out of your hands? Are you aware that anybody in your workplace who goes to hell because you never told them, their blood will be required out of your hands? What are you doing? I want to say, I'm not suggesting you use office hours to preach. You use office hours to get contact. Are we together? And during the contact, that's when you say, can I buy you tea? And nobody refuses free tea. And once you're on the tea place, chochote chaweza kutokea. So you need to design, strategize, how to ensure your bosses and the people you work with get to know about Christ. It's not our job to save. Our job is to witness. Only Christ can save. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. John Nganga. And so you tell me that old people have nothing to offer? Wouldn't you just want to listen to him on and on? Oh my goodness, and he's hilarious. But also full of wisdom. So we're going into the panel session. As we do that, we will take 2 questions for Mr. John Nganga, which Paminas will help me to run with. 2 questions?
I'm Robert Nganga, a pastor with the Christian Church International. and also a reader with the Kingdom Story Ministry, Kenya. I want to ask a question, and this question probably is unfortunate that the CS is not here, but I know that we have men and women that are going to pass over this information to her so that at least we can know what we're going to do about this. First of all, we had a discussion on the youth in the government. And I felt the conversation is good, but it seemed like, in a way, we tilted from the theme of this symposium from the faith in the workplace to the youth in the government, or faith in the workplace in the government to the youth in the government. Listen as to why I'm asking this is, and I thank God that we have men and women here who God has granted favor, who can take this conversation to the government offices. And I would want us to ask ourselves, there are other religions here in Kenya, and we are 80%. There are other religions, and I don't want to keep on mentioning because we also know that whenever one of them gets into an office, he ensures that other people of his own religion are inside there. Now, we are 80%. And the things that happen in the government, within the government offices, sometimes we realize that they are working against us Christians, where we are 80%. For instance, today, we know that the Christians, and I know the pastors who are here and are reference, know to get that book for wedding, you know how much you buy. Yet, 80% we are Christians. Now, what should we do as believers who are there? And probably this gets to the CS. I wish it gets to her. What should we do to ensure that we don't only take people there who have a Christian name, but people who are Christians by faith and practice?
My question is, as a Christian, there are some beliefs you partake on. Like, for example, I do not find that if it's Christian to support something like prostitution or gayism as it was in the court. Then again, you are in school of law whereby you are supposed to think like a scholar. You arrange your points in a scholarly way to support prostitution. You feel your mind is supporting it, but your heart as a Christian, it is away. Same can happen to a workplace whereby you are supposed to draft some articles. You find you are becoming so secular, but again, you want to impress your boss with very good work in your place. But then as a Christian, doesn't match the same. Where your beliefs as a Christian are always contradicting what you think as a scholar. I'm wondering how you can match the two.
The first question is not mine. The person said clearly it's for Richard. And your job is a messenger to send it to Dr. Professor Kofia. Did I understand it correctly? You want, yeah. The other one is mine, because that is something all of us will go through. All of us. There will be values in your place of work which contradict your values. Are we together? And you have to make up your mind whether you can work there. That's why you should not just take a job because it's a job. You must start by asking, can I stand for the values that go with the person? For example, somebody can argue, all they're asking me in breweries is to be an accountant. I'm just adding figures. Not understanding that there is a philosophy you also have to subscribe. Are we together? And anyway, the work of a stock accountant is to ensure there's enough stock everywhere so that everybody can be drunk. It's very important. Very important to understand that, and that's why that question was very important, that a Christian cannot work everywhere. There are places he cannot work. For example,
If a place is selling drugs, drug trafficking, their pay is very high, and you'll be tithing anyway. Will you take the job? Are we together? So it's important to understand, I do consultancy work, and I'm offered. But there are jobs I don't take, not because I don't need the money, but because my values and those people's values cannot go together. However, there are places where the values are not the problem, it's the practice. Once the values are okay, but the practice is different, I'll go there. Because as long as they are not practicing their values, I'll be protected by their written values to fight their practice. Am I making a difference? Yeah, because there are many people where, if you look at the values on the wall, they are fantastic. Like they write here, this is a corruption-free zone. Now, but they're actually asking you for a bribe. Now, that kind of place you can work. Because what they are lacking are examples to follow. Are we together? So a Christian should go there in order to set an example. So you need to understand that that is something you struggle with all the time. However, he said something that only the MC can answer. When you are arguing a case in court and you are having to use unbiblical truths in order to, however, for me, you have heard I left university more than 42 years ago. I have done many jobs, both in this country and out of the country. I have never given in on issue of values, irrespective of the possibility of losing the business. Am I communicating? You have absolutely no excuse to write a paper, something unbiblical, something God will be not happy, when you remember you are getting 2 marks. One from the lecturer, the other one from God. Do you remember the special branch model? So it means that you cannot sit there, Brother Nga, what can I do? My children have no food. Your children don't get from your employer. They get from God. And the moment you understand that, it means if there's something you are compromising in your place of work, you need to either resign or make a stand. And you know something? If your performance is such that they don't want to lose you, they will change the values. Would you agree with me? They don't want to lose you. You tell them, I can't work with this kind of practice. They'll stop the practice rather than lose you. Are we together? But you can't sit somewhere like he is saying, where you know you are contradicting biblical beliefs in order for you to keep in the job. That, to me, my personal view is I'm ready to lose the promotion, I'm ready to lose the job in order to please the Lord. And the good thing is, I told you, you keep assuming you'll be fired because you are ready to be fired, but I never got fired. Am I communicating? So I'm not suggesting that you'll be fired, but then you should be ready. You actually can be fired. So you need to stand ready so that you are able to say no to any practice that doesn't honor God.
Major round of applause. A major round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much.